Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to StoryMan-Jack. So today, what we're going to do, and I know this has been a while coming. There's been a lot of stuff going on. I was sick, I'm going through a separation at the moment. There's a lot of real life stuff going on that I don't want to get into, but this is the story that came out of the creation process that I started with you guys, and I'm kind of happy with it. I'm not sure how it's going to go over, but if you'll look back in the rest of the series, we got the idea for this from a poem. We built on that. We went through the process of characterization, getting some details down, showing how my process works in this, and this is the rough draft. So it's kind of the final stage, and then what I do is I'm going to put this away for about 3 to 6 months and not touch it, and then I'll read through it and edit it as I go, the things that no longer make sense to me. Because what happens is when you write, and you're just going and going and going, if you go back and look back at it immediately, you already remember what you were trying to say, so your brain fills in any blanks that you've left. So what you do is you put that project away for 3 to 6 months. If it's a larger project like a book, you put it away for about a year. And then when you go back to it, you don't remember everything you were trying to get across. So when something doesn't make sense and won't make sense to your readers or your audience, then you'll see that it'll pop out at you. So let's get started. This is the rough draft. So there are going to be a lot of errors in here and might even be a lot of misspellings. But I wanted to show you the actual process and not a finished product. So I've called it The Thief's Tale, and I think it turned out pretty interesting. Let's take a look. Waking in the gutter was a morning routine for Dugan. Groaning, he sat up and pushed his nimble fingers through his greasy hair. An unfamiliar road surrounded by the emptiness of black sand and rock stretched out before him. He woke with the blurry memories of the night before. A celebration was the last thing he remembered. A wealthy merchant had blundered into the wrong part of town, Dugan's part of town, and with equal care he had slit the man's throat and his purse strings. He celebrated that take the only way he knew how. Dugan did not like robbery, but it is the only choice left to him. He lamented at the loss of his own business to the occupation, and since they were the government and the turncoat aristocrats sold out, he had little choice but to steal and survive. Little choice but to eke out his existence in the gutters and sewers of the shadowy underbelly of his beloved city. Dugan examined his pockets with a sigh. Oh well, it was good while it lasted. He liked good strong ale, but his money disappeared as fast when he celebrated the stuff. Climbing to his feet, Dugan stretched as he looked around. Absolutely nothing grew in the black sand and rock that surrounded him. The color was drab and pale, a contrast to the vivid yet dirty color of the streets in the city. Dominating the landscape was a castle like the storytellers used to frighten people with in their dark tales. Deadly spires rising into the sky like black needles reaching for the heart of God. Where in God's name are we? Dugan wondered aloud as he looked up at the brown sky. It seemed like something was filtering the sun through the dark ale he liked to drink. Fear began to rise inside of the slender man. He simply did not know where he was or what to do about it. Dugan had never heard of such a place, but there he was. The alter persona that Dugan carried around with him took over. The thief was a part of him, yet separate, like another being that would take over in order to get him both out of fixes or just help him to simply survive. That was what the thief did here. The being that just been Dugan stood suddenly straighter and fiercer. A look of cunning reserve replaced the picture of ignorant fear on his face. He was the thief. He had no cares, no worries, and no history. The excitement, the sheer exhilaration of his craft drove him, though the thief knew that his and Dugan's lives were forfeit if anyone ever caught him. The thief was a creature of twisted city alleys, not meandering gravel roads. Perhaps someone had drugged Dugan's ale and left him out there. He was only a little lightheaded, but considering the amount of alcohol Dugan had consumed, felt remarkably well. His eyes fell on the castle again, the only touch of civilization in the surrounding wasteland. It sat there waiting for me, he said aloud. We have to make a decision, the thief stated. What do you mean? Dugan asked. I do not think that sneaking in will work. Whoever lives in that behemoth up there will see us long before we ever get to the gates, he tried to explain. So, Dugan asked, do not be an idiot. If we try to sneak in there, they see us. We will just look like fools. You're the only fool here. You don't have to be insulting. What do you suggest we do? Dugan asked. You will just walk right up, knock on the door. You've dealt with aristocrats in the past and might be able to do it now without fucking the whole thing up. Looks like it auto-corrected there. Hey, I can't help it if they lied to cut a deal with the occupation, Dugan whined. Oh, quit your sniveling. Just try to get us in. I'll do the rest, the thief said before leaving. Well, that's just great, Dugan lamented. The gates were tarnished brass, open, and in good condition when Dugan slipped through. He raked the muck from his hair and tried to brush the stinking scraps of refuse from his coat. It was hopeless. The occupation rewarded well those aristocrat bastards who sold out to them. Him, Dugan, as close to role model as still breathed to free the people, covered in filth. A soldier of the national movement crouched down among the nation's garbage. This was the reward for a heart that remained loyal. Oh well, they'll get what's coming to them, he told himself. Sandy and desolate, the inner yard, was much the same as the land beyond the wall and gates. The courtyard was huge and empty. Mass of black sand. No man stood around. No trace of horses or other animals hinted to Dugan that nothing had been as it seemed with the place. He had been in castles before, and they all seemed to be bustling inner cities. Dugan looked closer for the disrepair that accompanied abandonment, but found none of the telltale signs. The walls were free of mold and ivy. The few wooden structures looked to have fresh paint. The feeling in his stomach that he once thought was hunger began to spread. It was fear. Plain and simple. Bracing himself, Dugan approached what looked to him like... Let's see, where was I? Dugan looked closer for the... Alright, there we go. Bracing himself, Dugan approached what looked to him like the main entry door. The double-sided black oak doors stood imposing before him like stalwart guardians denying entry. Before he had a chance to knock on them, the doors opened wide. A man's 4-foot frame stood in the doorway with his odd-shaped bald head turned, emphasizing his sharply pointed ears. We were beginning to worry about your arrival, he said. What do you mean? Dugan asked. The little man just stood back to allow Dugan to enter. The thief decided he could allow Dugan to screw up their... He could not allow Dugan to screw up their only chance, so he took over again. He stepped back, stood straighter, and placed his hands behind his back, knowing that a cruel hook-bladed knife sat in his belt there. What do you mean by that? The small man shrugged his shoulders with a gleaming smile, showing teeth filed to a razor-sharp edge. You were on the road for a while. We could see you coming. It is quite high up in the tower, I assure you, he said, gesturing to the tower. This made sense, but the suspicious thief only entered after the man stepped out of the way. After walking in the dreary inner yard, entering the keep was like entering a cave, and it took a moment for Dugan's eyes to adjust. The entryway was of dark granite with a black marble floor. Great oak double doors, much like the ones he had just entered, stood opposite him. Again, Dugan ran his fingers through his greasy hair. The thief had gone, and Dugan did not know where he went. The mistress likes it dark, the little man offered, noting Dugan's discomfort. Why is that? Dugan asked. Again, the man smiled his gruesome smile. I have always known her to. Dugan swallowed hard. He did not like the situation he found himself. Dugan wished the thief would take over and get him out of the uncomfortable predicament that he walked into, but the thief was gone. They entered the main hall from the entryway with a slight tug on the double doors by the little man. What is your name? Dugan asked. Bishop, the little man replied. Dugan could not help himself. It started in his belly and rose up through him like a shot of steam. He guffawed like a common dock worker. What are you, a priest or something? He asked, still laughing. The lines appeared on Bishop's forehead, and his eyes narrowed. I am, in a manner of speaking. Dugan caught the warning, but it was too late. I'm sorry. I just never have heard the word used as a name. Bishop grunted as if it did not matter, and led Dugan through the next set of doors. The same black marble continued into the main hall. Dugan's thick boots clicked on the floor as if he were breaking glass as he walked. The space was immense and dark. The walls shimmered with darkened shadows from the ceiling that was so high it was barely out of view. The corkscrew staircase flew up in the center of the room like an escaping dove. 2 other doorways stood in the walls to either side of him. It struck Dugan as how symmetrical the place really was. Symmetry, predictability, and predictability meant easy. If he could arrange to stay for just a few days, he could steal enough to at least make it back to the city. It was not much, but Dugan believed it was a workable plan. It was all he could do not to rub his hands together in greedy delight. Somewhere inside of Dugan, the thief screamed a warning, but Dugan used what little control he had to push it away. He was salivating with the greed and the prospects of paying back the aristocrats that turned on him. Mistress will receive you shortly, Bishop told him. What about the lord of the house? Dugan asked. He is not about, Bishop replied, then scuttled off into one of the doorways that Dugan noticed earlier, the one on his left. What are you doing? The thief asked Dugan when they were alone. Getting ready, Dugan whispered. You're an idiot. You do not even have any idea who lives in this castle. We cannot work like that. It can be too unpredictable. I made you, and I will do what I want, Dugan replied, rubbing his forehead. My turn, the thief said. Again, Dugan's stance changed. His eyes narrowed as the thief studied the hall inside, instead of dropping his jaw in awe. There would be no sneaking in and out of that room. Dugan was an idiot, and the thief was getting tired of having to deal with him. Dugan may have made him, but he was the one who kept them eating. He was the one who kept them alive, and he was not about to let Dugan get them killed for the sake of a few gold coins. It was probably only just enough for the dolt to drink himself silly again. The thief was out of his element. He had no names. He did not even have a location relative to the city, but he did have something. He had adrenaline pumping into his blood. He could hear the beating of his heart in his head, and he enjoyed it. It was the game of mystery, and like it or not, he was ready to play. The thief only waited for a few minutes, making sure that he would not be disturbed. He walked to his left and approached the door that Bishop disappeared through. He tried to turn the knob, but it had no give. He must have locked it on his way through. He then walked behind the staircase and found a wall with a huge tapestry. It was bright and beautiful, clearly in contrast to the rest of the atmosphere. The scene depicted 2 lovers in some kind of garden, sharing stolen kisses. The man was in bright armor, while the woman wore a long sheer dress that left little to the imagination. The tapestry seemed to pull at the thief. He found his hand stroking the lady's face before he pulled away with a jerk. He promptly walked toward the other door, but before he could try the knob, he heard a sound coming from the expanse above him. The thief shuffled as quietly as he could to the place where Bishop had left him. Once there, he saw her. It was the woman from the tapestry. She stood atop the stairway like a dove waiting on the fence. Her dark hair sent shivers down his back. Shadows danced upon her face, even as they did her castle's walls. Her dark dress flowed about her, even as the marble floor flowed throughout the room. Her pale skin reflected the same color as the columns in the room, and her presence pulsed out at the thief's awareness, and he felt things that he did not normally feel. The images of love, loss, and need flooded into him. The thief felt tears rolling down his cheeks. She reminded him of things he had never known, but desperately needed. He wiped the tears from his eyes hurriedly, as if he were embarrassed to show such raw emotion. When he looked back at the woman standing on the staircase above them, their eyes locked together. There were not any whites to her eyes that he could see. The entirety of them were black. It was as if somebody had let all the blood run into them and it dried there. Those eyes did something to the thief. Those eyes took his strength. The lady was like him. She became a part of the thief, but it was the eyes. They chained him more than Dugan ever could, and they banished him. Dugan's body jerked slightly. He was himself again, and he was looking into the eyes of the most beautiful woman he had ever seen. Those were the eyes of despair and revenge. This lady had gotten back at those who used her, just as he wanted to get back at the aristocrats who had used him. Dugan felt no fear. He felt only need, and it was a need for the lady that stood before him. Some spell took hold of Dugan and held him fast. Dugan was a statue, one so appropriate to the lady's house, carved by some drunken jokester. Dugan would have called the spell that had him love. The mistress was a lioness stalking that love. She stopped just 2 steps from where he stood on the landing. "I am the Lady Selene," she said in a voice that shimmered. Dugan knew that name, but he could not remember from where. It was like the memory of a memory, like a whisper in the wind. Her voice spoke again, full of sugar and dripping with invitation. "I am the mistress here. Your name, sir?" He could not have lied to her if he wanted to. Dugan, my lady." Such a formal turn sounded odd coming from his lips. He never spoke to aristocrats with such a professional manner. They did not deserve it. But this lady did. She leaned close to him. He felt her breath drift lightly upon his upturned face. She looked down on him with a sweet smile. "Well, Dugan, I will have Bishop get you a bed for the night. You are welcome to rest or explore at your leisure. Just remember to meet us here for the sunset meal. We will have more time for you then." "Yes, my lady," he replied. Selene backed up a step and clapped her hands together. There was a loud boom throughout the hall, and Dugan imagined the entire castle. Bishop scurried from the same doorway and had disappeared into earlier to stand at the side of his mistress. "My queen?" he asked. "Queen?" Dugan whispered to himself. If she heard him, she took no notice. "Yes, put Master Dugan in the first room." She then turned to Dugan. "It will make it easier for you to find after you have a chance to explore the castle. Please feel free to do so. We so delight in others seeing what we have created here. Dinner is at sunset, not a moment later." "I will be there, my lady," he replied. Selene ascended the stairs with the prowess of a great hunting cat that was about to play with its prey. Her flowing gown enticed Dugan. He felt the nervous sweat bead upon his head, and his pulse speed up to double beats. Again he ran his fingers through his hair. He wanted to follow her, but could not bring himself to do so. He was not worthy of this great lady. The room was just off the first landing, the spiraling staircase. Bishop pushed open the door and stepped inside to let Dugan see. Red walls lined in darker reds greeted him. There was no ornaments on the walls, but sconces held low burning torches. Dugan had a sudden flash of blood splattering all over the place. He reached out to the doorframe to steady himself until the image passed. "Are you all right, Master Dugan?" Bishop asked, smiling whimsically. "For all you know, I'm a thief or a murderer. Why do you treat me so principally?" he asked. "My mistress and lord treat all who come they accept into their home in such a manner. It is their nature," Bishop replied. Dugan walked into the room. He caught the fragrance of freshly cut flowers, though he did not see them. He then walked to the large canopy feather bed that dominated the west side of the room. He felt the thief wanting in and decided just to let him have control. Dugan did not know what questions to ask, but the thief did. He sat on the bed and leaned back. When he sat up, his eyes had narrowed, and a grin was on his face. "Can you answer some other questions for me, Bishop?" he asked. As well as I can, sir, Bishop answered as he walked into the room. How many people live in the castle? 3 souls dwell in this house. Again, the little man smiled, with his filed teeth gleaming. The thief stood up and scratched his chin and walked around the bed, pretending to inspect it for functionality. Why would a place so grand even exist if not for a multitude? How could 3 people care for such a large place or even afford to keep it up? There were just too many unanswered questions. The lady was not present to subdue him. It seems such a large place for only 3 people, the thief said. Bishop shrugged and smiled again. The thief had a gut feeling that he was going to get another half answer. We get things done by... He paused and smiled again. Ones who do not dwell here. My lord handles that. The thief eyed the little man coldly. That hesitation told him very little, and only gave him more questions. That he could not ask Bishop, not without jeopardizing himself. He decided to move on to another subject. When do you call the Lady Selene your queen? He asked. Bishop chuckled to himself. You will come to understand at the sunset meal, Master Dugan. The little man walked to the porcelain basin and opened the door in the small oak cabinet beneath it. He pulled out a large pitcher and made the same style as the basin. Bishop filled the basin with water from this pitcher, then approached the thief again. Will there be anything else, Master Dugan? The thief shook his head in bewilderment. Got absolutely nothing. No information from the man. Only more questions. Good. I must prepare for tonight. I will bring you, he chuckled to himself again, a flagon of ale if you would like. The thief did not miss the reference, but he decided that he would take it easy for the time being. No, thank you. Very well, Master Dugan, the bishop said as he left. The thief padded softly to the door, where he placed his ears on the cold oak. The soft footsteps of Bishop receded down the stairs. The thief backed away from the door and sat on the bed. I have to get out of here, he said. What do you mean? Bishop let something slip. He knows how we got here. He knows that you drink too much. Don't be so paranoid. He's just strange. We have it made here. They're even going to let us explore the castle. We're going to do no such thing. They're up to something. They have just been too vague about everything. We just need to find a way out of here, the thief said. And how do you think we'll do that? The only way out I know of is through the front entry. That would insult them. And you never know about aristocrats. They might kill us over such an offense, Dugan tried to explain. We could find a way. Because they may kill us anyway, the thief said as he scratched his chin. Dugan ran a hand through his hair. I think that we should go to dinner and try and find out more information. Let's not jump yet. Will you try to get the information, or will you be too wrapped up in her? The thief asked. What do you mean? You know exactly what I mean. I'll do it, Dugan promised. You'd better. In the meantime, we'll just sit and wait, the thief told Dugan. You don't need to get into any trouble by trying to explore this place between now and then. All right, I can see that. I'm surprised that you can see anything, the thief told him sarcastically. Oh, shut up, Dugan said. Dugan washed in a small basin and dressed in the finery that laid out for such a purpose, then descended the stairs. He knew that he was close to being late, but figured that a few minutes would not matter. The lady was waiting for him. She stood as like the perfect marble statue without flaw nor blemish. Enthralled by her presence, the feelings that took hold of him earlier grabbed him again. He reached the bottom of the stairs where the lady was smiling. I see that you do your best to meet with my wishes. That is good. He was the naughty child late for dinner. Someone who can get their instructions correct for a change, a male voice stated, making Dugan jump. The man was dressed in black doublet. His raven black hair was short and his skin pale. Dugan assumed that this was the lord of the master, for he resembled the man in the tapestry that the thief had studied. The man's voice was low, but it was also sharp. He was the perfect complement to her, a tall, imposing figure that stood next to her like a chief general. Come with us, Selene ordered. The thief banged at the inside of Dugan's head, a futile attempt. However, Dugan once again succumbed to her spell. The Lady Selene and the Lord led Dugan through the doorway opposite the one that Bishop had entered earlier. They escorted him, one on either side like guards taking a prisoner to his cell. Celine walked in a smooth, almost fluid pace, as if one would assume an angel moved. It was almost as if her feet did not even touch the floor. The lord of the castle walked in a statelier manner, but appeared ready for anything, like the practiced warrior. The thief was frantic, pushing against Dugan's consciousness. The lady turned to Dugan as she walked. I must admit, I expected you to at least try to explore our little castle. I did not feel that it would be appropriate, my lady, Dugan lied. They reached the end of a long corridor. There was a steel door in the face of the dark marble hall. I am hungry, Dugan remarked. The lady laughed, a silvery peal of laughter. I do not know how you will like the meal here tonight, but over time I'm sure you will come to appreciate it. What do you mean? Dugan asked. We're not about to have dinner. We're going to... She paused. Reward you. Thief broke through the stone barrier of the lady's spell. His awareness showed him only the darkness that surrounded them all, and the lady's empty black eyes. What do you mean by that? He asked. Ah, you are the thief. I usually loathe thieves, but I'm in need of one. I shall strip away the parts of you that hinder your nature, thief. Then you will serve me, she said, as she looked directly into his eyes. The thief backed away, horrified, knowing that there was no escape. Which parts? I will strip away everything that does not shine in the darkness, everything I cannot use. She said this with a whimsical smile in the same husky voice that had enchanted him earlier. His hands groped at the back for his knife, but found nothing. The thief fled. He knew that the lady was dangerous. He just did not know how dangerous. And Dugan's body shrank as he took control again. Dugan, she began again, I will teach you, O thief, to be a beast that steals people's bodies and devours their souls. He will be my spy, my arrow, my thief, and he will enjoy the pain of it all. You, Dugan, will be fed your meal tonight, a meal of pain and torment. Who are you people? Dugan asked. The Lord smiled, an evil half-smile, and grabbed Dugan by the throat. My name is Mohab. I am the servant of my mistress, the Dark Queen. He tossed Dugan into the room behind the steel door with very little effort. Dugan's stomach was in his chest. Now he knew the name. These two were the Devourers. They had let loose the tide that was behind the occupation. They were the ones who were taking over the world. The rumors said it was Mohab and his Dark Queen that perverted the nature of men and their other races, and that they were the forerunners of the sin Devakaran of hell. They had come for the thief, an evil to make part of their darkness. The castle had waited to help the thief rid himself of Dugan. The queen stepped lightly to the doorway framed by the dim torchlight. All Dugan could see of her features were the emptiness of her dark eyes. They were no longer black, but totally devoid of light, so dark that he could see them in her silhouette. He could feel her hate and the stench of blood on her hands. I have come to liberate the thief. Come out, thief. Shoved violently back into the darkness, Dugan fell away. The thief stood in his place. Your new name is Loathe. You will be a thing of pain, and you will live eternally. You will serve Mohab, you will serve me, and you will serve our master. The sheer force behind her mind, of her evil, caused him to black out. It was her will, and he could not deny her. Dugan woke. He was on a table. It took some time for his eyes to adjust to the near-complete darkness in the room. The smell of the room was musty and bloody, as if Dugan were breathing with a recently bloodied nose. Bishop stood next to him with something in his hand. Are you ready, Loathe? He giggled as he asked. Dugan stretched his neck and peered up at the bishop's hand. The little man was holding the cruel, hook-nosed knife. It was a thief's knife. What are you going to do with that? Bishop smiled a cruel little smile. The razor-sharp teeth sent shivers up and down Dugan's spine. Why, I'm going to make you a better man. Repent your sins and such. Bishop laughed, and he took his knife and made a smooth cut across Dugan's forehead. Dugan's screams echoed back and forth in the room for several moments. The little man stopped after the cut and leaned against the wall. He closed his eyes and relished the sound of the screams. When they ended, Bishop reached beneath the table and pulled out a small pair of metal pliers. Now, this is going to hurt, and I hope you enjoy it, Bishop said as he went for the cut with the tongs. As the screams faded into the darkness of the castle, new wails came from the gloom. These were the cries of an unholy birth, the birth of Loath, the thief. Well, that's the rough draft. And one of the reasons it's taken so long to write is the guy got personal stuff going on, yeah. But, man, doing a character that has multiple personality disorder is really, really difficult. And I wanted to make them as distinct as I could without really jeopardizing the total character. But please make comments. I need feedback. I listen to you guys, unlike the people out there in Hollywood and mainstream and stuff. And I really, really would love to hear your thoughts, your criticisms, what you liked, what you disliked, where you think it could go. Again, thank you very much. And please, if you haven't already subscribed, hit that like button and share this for everyone to read, to be entertained, to get something that I think is good. Now, remember, your story is the most important. Hey, this is StoryMan-Jack. I just wanted to say thank you for watching. I appreciate everybody who tunes in, and look forward to seeing you next time. Please, if you enjoyed the video, like, share, and subscribe. And remember, you're the creator and writer of your own story. Make it a great one. Thank you.